Most of the stories the OP shared before happened when he was a teenager, but in this episode, he's taking us even further back to his childhood, and to the strange tales the elders used to tell him. Remember how he said he always felt like the village was trapped under some kind of dome? Well, after hearing these stories, you might start to believe it too, because ghostly things really did keep happening here. As always, I'll be sharing them in the first person, and yes, there's a jump scare warning. Okay, let's get started. When I was really little, late 80s, before I even started school, I was mostly looked after by my grandma. She's pretty easygoing, never strict with me, except for one rule. She absolutely forbade me from going near this old opera stage in the southwest part of the village. According to her, the stage had been there for over 100 years, built way back in the Qing dynasty. But by then, it was completely run down, too unsafe to use. She told me she was just worried I'd get hit by rotting wood. Later, I realized that was just an excuse adults used to scare kids off. One afternoon during Lunar New Year, Grandma went out visiting relatives, and I was hanging around with a couple of kids from the village. We were out looking for bird nests, and somehow, don't even ask me how, we wandered all the way to that forbidden opera stage. Upon on the big beams of the stage, we spotted some giant nests, so the three of us grabbed a long bamboo pole and started poking at them. After a while, nothing came down, and we were just about ready to leave when one of the kids, a boy named Huang Li, suddenly vanished. We looked down and saw the truth. The wooden boards in the middle of the stage had already rotten through, leaving a hole about 2 feet wide, and Huang Li had fallen straight in. We rushed to the edge, stretched our arms down to pull him up. Luckily, he wasn't hurt, and he reached back for our hands. But then, it happened. His whole body jolted like something shocked him, and he slowly turned his head. The next second, he let out the most blood-curdling scream I'd ever heard. We froze, every hair on our bodies standing up. One braver kid don't hesitate, he jumped down through a side hole and crawled inside. It was pitch dark in there, and in the dim light, he found Huang Li squatting there, frozen, hands clamped over his eyes, shaking violently, too terrified to move. He dragged Huang Li out, but by then the boy was in shock. His eyes glazed over, his legs too weak to stand. Just then, his father happened to walk by after finishing farm work. The moment Huang Li saw him, he stumbled over and clapped in his arms, bawling his eyes out. And through the tears, he kept repeating, "Inside, there's a woman, only the head and hands." Man, that sent us scattering in every direction, sprinting home like our lives depended on it. By the next day, everyone in the village had heard the story. According to the boy, when he first fell in, he was just to grab our hands to climb out. But suddenly, he felt an icy hand clutch his back. He turned around, and right there was a pale woman's face wearing a phoenix crown, lips painted blood red, rising out of freezing mist. The villagers were stunned. That very night, they tore up all the wooden planks on the stage, and underneath, they found something buried in the dust. An old, faded bridal headdress, exactly the kind a woman would have worn centuries ago on her wedding day. This story takes us back in time, way before I was even born. It's something I heard from the elders in my family. A long time ago, a young man named Liu Sheng died in our village. His death was horrible. He was blasting rocks up in the mountains and messed up the detonator. The explosion killed him instantly. There wasn't even a body left. The only thing people found was his hand. Liu Sheng's family were outsiders from Jilin province. Back then, our little village only had one shared telephone, and transportation was rough, so no one could even reach the relatives far away. With no other choice, the villagers all chipped in some money to give him a burial. 4 days after Liu Sheng's burial, it was the 7th day. According to our custom, that's the day when spirit comes home one last time to see the family before leaving for the other world. But because he died so tragically, the villagers had moved his wife and young son to another house for safety. They only left some offerings in their home, food and wine, hoping he would take them and then leave quietly. That night, the whole village shut their doors early. The mountain air was thick with a strange silence. A pale, broken moon was hanging behind the clouds, a kind of fear. Just when everyone thought the night would pass peacefully, Liu Sheng's big yellow dog started howling. But it wasn't barking. It was this low, drawn-out wail, like a woman crying. The sound rose and fell, chilling everyone to the bone. One dog cried, then other dogs joined in. Soon the whole village was awake. Was Liu Sheng back? The braver folks peeked through their curtains, but the street was empty. Then, just as abruptly as it started, all the dogs went quiet. The silence felt like the calm before the storm, forcing everyone to hold their breath. Then suddenly came another sound. Something was knocking against the stone road, and mixed in, the scrape of metal chains dragging. It must be the underworld messengers bringing Liu Sheng home. Then, one family living closest to Liu Sheng's house heard it clearly. The old wooden door creaking open. Inside, heavy gulps of water echoed in the still night, like someone drinking desperately. Then the door shut again. Silence. Was it the end? Not even close. Half an hour later, a new noise tore through the village. From the opera stage came the wailing sound of suona horns, banging wood, and even a man's screams. But this time, not a single villager dared step outside. Who knew if the ghost was out to kill someone? The next morning, Liu Sheng's families finally dared to come back home. Nothing looked out of place, except the wine from the offerings was completely gone, just like the gulping noises from the night before. Meanwhile, terrible news came from the other side of the village. The village chief was found lying on the opera stage, covered in blood, half buried under broken planks. Luckily, he was still breathing. They rushed him to the clinic and saved his life, but his mind never recovered. From then on, he drifted in and out of madness, muttering nonsense. Months later, rumors spread. The villagers said the chief had been the one who caused Liu Sheng's death. He was the one who bought the explosives and fuses, but to pocket extra money, he bought cheap, defective ones. That's why the accident happened. So people believe Liu took revenge on him. And the only reason the chief survived was because he had given Liu a decent burial and taken care of his families. Otherwise, Liu would have dragged him straight to the grave that night. You'd think that would be the end of the story, but it wasn't. Liu Sheng's spirit never really left the village. One summer, years later, a young man went to work in his mother-in-law's fields in the next village. He finished late, walking home under the moonlight. When he reached the old stone road, he saw someone up ahead, slowly, painfully making their way forward. Being a kind country boy, he hurried to catch up, pushing his bicycle alongside. The figure looked familiar, though the face was too blurry to make out. But the shadow felt known. They walked side by side. The young man tried making small talk, but the figure never spoke back, not a single word. Finally, near the big tree at the village entrance, the young man saw something he would never forget. The figure right next to him shattered. Yes, just shattered. It broke into a cloud of powder and vanished into thin air. The young man was so terrified, he abandoned his bike and ran for his life. The next day, when he told the villagers what he sang, nobody laughed. They all believed it. They said it must have been Liu Sheng. Because he died too young, too violently, his time in this world wasn't over yet. His spirit was trapped, repeating the same suffering over and over, until his unfinished life finally ran out and he could report to the underworld. By now, you might be wondering, why is my village so haunted? Well, there's actually a reason. The story goes all the way back to the Qing dynasty. Back then, This whole place was just one big mansion, owned by a rich landlord and his wife. But once he got wealthy, he didn't stop there. He ended up marrying 6 more wives. In this setup, arguments were inevitable. So the landlord, having money to burn, built 6 more houses around the mansion, one for each wife. He didn't bother giving the houses real names, he just numbered them in the order of the marriages. First house, second house, third house, all the way to the 7th. But the good times didn't last long. Eventually, the landlord went bankrupt. When it happened, the houses passed into the hands of the ordinary villagers, but those names stuck. Even today, people still call them by those numbers. Now, there was still one place no one dared to get too close to. The 7th house. And its location alone was strange and creepy enough. Unlike the other houses, which stood close together, the 7th house stood all by itself at the foot of the mountain, one side pressed against the slope, the other 3 sides surrounded by rice fields. Only one cobblestone path connected it back to the village. They say, at first, nothing strange happened there. But after the landlord's downfall, the 7th wife hit rock bottom. In despair, he knelt on her bed and hanged herself, wearing her bright red wedding dress. So you can see just how determined she was, and that's why she carried so much resentment. From that day on, the 7th house became a haunted house. Every year at the end of June, on a certain night, when the sky went dark, she would appear under the willow tree beside the house. Dressed in dazzling red, she would walk slowly, step by step, circling the place for 7 nights straight. People also noted that if you were foolish enough to go near, she would stop, her back still turned to you. Then, slowly, one hand would lift her red wheel. That's when you had to run. Because if you didn't get away, you'd probably never made it home alive. Of course, all of this is just rumor. I've never seen her, and honestly, I never dared to. But the next part of the story might explain, from a feng shui point of view, why this whole area feels cursed. Southwest of our hometown, there's a tiny village with just a few dozen households. About 3 miles from the entrance, there's a piece of wasteland. On one side, the foot of a mountain. On the other, a dirt road leading back to the village. And right next to it stood a broken pavilion. When I say broken, I mean really broken. Only 3 of the original 4 pillars were still standing, just barely keeping the thing from collapsing. For years, nothing strange happened. Until one day, a new little grave appeared at the foot of the mountain, right beside the pavilion. Villagers who knew feng shui took one look and were horrified. They warned, "This ruins the balance. Either move the grave or tear down the pavilion. Otherwise, something bad is going to happen." After that, more and more people started claiming they saw a white figure around the new grave, especially on nights with the full moon. They said the figure would drift, then in the blink of an eye, it would be sitting inside the pavilion, completely still, as if waiting for someone. The scariest part, the figure had no shadow, so it couldn't have been human. As the sightings increased, the villagers decided maybe they should relocate the grave. And then, the most shocking thing appeared. In that whole village, not one household admitted it belonged to them. Nobody knew who the dead person was or why they'd been buried there. Since no family came forward, the plan was dropped. And then, just a few weeks later, tragedy struck. One night, 2 men were riding home from a wedding. One pedaled, the other sat on the back seat. As they passed the pavilion in the bright moonlight, the man on the back pointed and whispered, "Look, there!" The one in front turned his head. Sure enough, a white figure stood by the pavilion. But this time, it wasn't sitting still. It was standing, straight and rigid, facing them directly, waiting. The rider broke out in a cold sweat. He told his friend to shut up and pedaled as fast as he could. Not until they reached the village entrance did he feel safe enough to breathe. But then he realized something was wrong. The back seat felt way too light. He turned. His friend was gone. Panic set in. But he didn't dare go back alone, so he rallied 10 villagers and rushed to the pavilion. But his friend wasn't there. Instead, he was kneeling on the new grave, holding the tablet. His forehead was smashed open, blood soaking the ground, and even staining the tombstone. It looked like he had been banging his head against a stone until he passed out. The villagers rushed him to the hospital, but before they made it, he stopped breathing. Later, people dug into the story and discovered the grave belonged to a man from another village who had died in a car accident. No one knew why he was buried there, but that grave was enough to twist the whole area's feng shui. So, when I think about our village, the heavy yin energy of the mountain, the strange placement of the 7th house, the old opera stage, it feels like the same thing. Maybe all of it together broke the balance, and maybe that's why so many restless spirits ended up here. About 10 kilometers away from our village, there's a small town called Linjiang. There, an old couple lived with their 10-year-old granddaughter. The old man, we all called him Uncle Zheng, made a living by collecting scrap. One day, while picking up plastic bottles along the highway, he wandered into a grassland surrounded by woods. The grass was tall and overgrown, the kind you could tell no one had walked through in a long time. On the hillside stood a broken-down wooden house, windows gone, doors missing, clearly abandoned for years. Uncle Zheng thought, maybe I'll find something useful in there, and stepped right inside. Inside, the rooms were thick with dust and cobwebs. He picked up some bottles, jars, old books, and newspapers, ready to leave, when something in the corner caught his eye. Half buried under broken boards lay an old-fashioned mantel clock, the kind with a tiny door where, once upon a time, a little bird would pop up to chirp. Curious, he pulled it out, and to his surprise, it wasn't broken at all. He wound it up, and tick-tock, it still worked. Delighted, he carried it home. Back at the house, he wiped it down, adjusted the time, tick-tock, tick-tock, night fell. As soon as it got dark, the family finished dinner and went to bed early. But in the middle of the night, half asleep, Uncle Zheng suddenly woke up. He heard footsteps walking around the house. Damn, there must be a burglar. He quickly turned on the light. From behind the mosquito net, everything looked normal. Only the tick-tock filled the silence. Maybe I misheard, he thought, so he turned the light off and lay down again. But not long after, those footsteps come again, louder this time. Now Uncle Zheng couldn't sleep at all. He turned on the light, got up, put on his shoes, and thoroughly searched the whole house. But the doors and windows were all closed. Nobody had come in, and there wasn't anything unusual even under the bed. Shaking his head, he thought maybe he was getting old and his hearing was going bad. But this time, he dared not turn the light off, and he just forced himself to stay awake. Just when he was lying on bed, the sound returned, closer, right by his bed. Uncle Zheng turned to look, and that's when he saw it. The mosquito net slowly pulling open on both sides, then falling shut again, then open once more, as if someone was trying to peek at him. He froze, not daring to move a muscle. The footsteps shifted, slowly and deliberate, heading straight for the clock. Then, the little door at the bottom swung open. Out stepped a tiny figure. It stood perfectly still on the desk, dressed in red shirt and green pants, like something out of an old painting. And then, unbelievably, it turned toward the bed, dropped to its knees, bowed his head to the floor a few times, and vanished into thin air. Now the old man was getting scared. He quickly went to the next room to find his wife. Along with his wife came their 10-year-old granddaughter. Together, they inspected the clock inside and out. Nothing unusual, just gears and springs. But just then, the granddaughter suddenly said, "Grandpa, can I play with that little man?" "What little man?" She pointed to the clock. "That one. He's sitting inside the door smiling at me." A chill ran through the room. The old couple finally realized how serious this was and quickly carried the clock outside together, one in front and one behind, threw the clock beside a creek. The two of them didn't sleep at all the rest of the night, but the matter didn't seem to settle down after that. The next day, Uncle Zheng went missing. He went out collecting scrap, but never came home. Villagers searched all night, and by the next morning, they found him in that same abandoned house. He was sitting in a corner, lifeless, clutching the clock tightly in his arms. There were no signs of injury, no heart attack. Not even the forensic expert could explain it. The investigation dragged on for more than 2 months, but in the end, no one had an answer. And so, the case was left unsolved. As for the clock, nobody dared to touch it. They just left it in the house, and it's still there to this day. I feel like there was some kind of spirit living inside the clock, and when Uncle Zheng brought it home, he might have saved it, and it chose him as its master. Seriously, guys, don't even bring home random junk you find on the road, let alone deep in the mountain. You never know what's attached to it. And finally, the OP even gave us the exact location of his hometown. It's Yongfeng Village in Zhongxing Town, Pucheng County, Northern Fujian Province. Let's Google it. So, is this the one? A tiny village surrounded by mountains? Just one road in and out, with a little river running alongside. But these days it looks much more developed, with schools and hospitals, you can say. But still, there's something cut off about it. Alright, that's the end of this series. Next episode will be our Mid-Autumn Festival special. Can you believe it? It's already our second Mid-Autumn together. Alright then, let's talk about the strange things that happen at night. So don't forget to subscribe. I'll be waiting for you. Bye bye.